Hello, all. Welcome to another 10 a.m. broadcast of Center for Spiritual Living, Palm Desert. My name is Reverend Brad, and today's November 17th, 2020. And for the next couple of months, all of the staff ministers will be presenting a program on Tuesdays at 10 o'clock for your enjoyment, education, and hopefully more enjoyment. So today I've asked an awesome woman, an amazing minister, my former wife, and mother to our son, and a zillion more other accolades that we'll probably get into in our discussion for the next hour. Dr. Michelle Medrano. She's the lead minister, one of the lead ministers at the Mile High Church of Religious Science. That community is the largest metaphysical new thought community on the planet by a lot in percentage and size wise. They do amazing work there in Denver, Colorado, in service and community and education. Just a wonderful expression of the infiniteness of God that is. So I look forward to joining her today as we talk about from COVID to Christmas, how to keep the spirit in the spirit of the season. So Dr. Michelle, can you share a little bit about you and maybe just a short synopsis of your journey to Science of Mind?
Sure. It's great to be here with you, Reverend Brad, and to be with this wonderful community. So I'm so excited to have this conversation. And I found our wonderful teaching as a teenager. I had been discouraged by other faith traditions and decided that I wanted to explore. So my mother and I actually began to explore, and we found Mile High Church in Denver. That's where I was living when I was 15 years old. And I jumped right into it and got really involved and eventually began to take some classes, had a strange call to ministry when I was 18, which I ignored for a number of years, but just felt that the things that drew me in included the opportunity to be able to think for myself and be okay with asking questions, which, as you know, I was kicked out of catechism for asking too many questions. So being able to question and find my own truth and find my own God really, really appealed to me. And I was sold, became a practitioner, and in 1991 became a minister. So that's my journey in a nutshell, as you would say.
Very cool. As I mentioned at the beginning, Dr. Michelle and I have a son together, Jesse, who's an awesome young man supporting politics in Colorado, and he's a behind-the-scenes leader and manager and doing, we personally think, amazing, awesome work supporting amazing individuals. So that's really, really cool. We invite your comments or questions, and they'll show up on the screen. Whether you have a question of either of us, personally, I guess would be okay if you have a personal question, or if you have anything else. We're going to be trying to, keep it light, keep it loving, talk about the funness and share, just because we have always loved hanging out together and chatting since we first met in 1994, right. I think, yeah. And as well as trying share our insights, and particularly Dr. Michelle's insights, why I asked her here specifically, of being present with spirit right now as we're in COVID, and then also moving to, the holiday season, whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas, and how we can keep that breath and that essence alive during the time when usually we could be out partying, we have a lot of people in our homes, and so many structures along that whole line look so much different. We want to see if there's something here for you today that can have you go beyond just a relationship with a UPS driver while he delivers Amazon to your house. So Michelle and I met at a church conference years ago, at the Asilomar conference that Centers for Spiritual Living used to have annually. And we met there and dated long distance for a while, and then got engaged and did that for a year and a half or so, and then got married, and had a wonderful time for a couple of decades in Phoenix, Arizona, at an amazing community there called Center for Spiritual Living, New Vision Center for Spiritual Living, New Vision. Terrific community, wonderful, loving people. That was awesome. That was awesome.
It was great. Yeah. Raised our son there, raised him in the teaching until he kind of decided on his own he wanted to step away from the community life. He's kind of, one thing that I loved about our partnership as parents is you and I figured out really early on that our son was an introvert, and we're both extroverts. And so we had to kind of guard his little energy all along his life. And of course, as he got older, going to church was not really interesting to him. And so, but people still were very loving to us, even in our choice to end our relationship. We were very loved and supported in that community. So it was
extremely, holy cow. Yes.
Really a powerful time, and a constant power, a constant dedication to the power of community in people's lives if they will let themselves be loved and supported.
That's the trick, right? Of how can are you open to being vulnerable enough to let yourself be loved? It's still a conversation sometimes in our teachings and our communities of we got to be positive all the time.
Right.
And how genuine listeners, think about it. If you ask me, how am I doing? And I just said, oh, I'm doing great. But if one time I said, I'm just having a struggle of a week, can you feel your empathy towards me and your depth of physical and non-physical connection you would have with me right in that moment, just because I choose to be vulnerable enough to say, it's kind of challenging right now. And that's what I'm currently experiencing and how it relates to you. So when we were able to do that in a community and end a marriage, change that relationship, it was really powerful to constantly be surrounded by love and connection. So
yes, and to our credit, to your credit, my credit, our credit, this teaching's credit, a lot of people that we saw over the years when they broke up, it was an argument about who gets the church, right? And you and I, even in the midst of a very public divorce and ending, both stayed in that church, both let ourselves be loved, encouraged people not to take sides. Neither one of us felt right or wrong or, blamed each other. And, we might have had our own personal dramas and things we had to go through to get to a more balanced space out of our marriage. But we didn't publicize that and didn't have any public craziness and fights. We just allowed people to love and support us through it. And to me, I really credit you with, and me of being a good example that people can end things and come apart in ways that are unexpected and still do it with peace and grace and love and completion, because there wasn't any denial. It wasn't like, oh, everything's just fine. We did have times when both of us were very depressed and discouraged and sad, and people just surrounded us and loved us through it and saw us through it, and we're the better because of that. We're the better by being better. We're the better because of being together, the better through going apart, and the better becoming who we are together now.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And we express that in practitioner meetings and prayer groups.
Yeah.
So yeah. So you can see how we can both recognize ourselves and recognize each other, listeners, in this conversation. And another, as we're reflecting on that time, Michelle, another big kudos for me, but particularly for you. So this was a woman who we were separated for about 9 months. We were clear we were moving into divorce, but it hadn't technically happened yet. And she knew the value that I would have internally and externally, and she asked me to be on the board of trustees. So think of that presence and consciousness that she has, and that she knew we had together, and that I have individually. I was very appreciative of that. That was a huge a gift to me and benefit for me to participate at that level for a while on the leadership that way, besides all the other things I was doing. So
that's great. Yeah. And you
were one of the most fun things I did in our community. It was after you left, and whether I was board president or not, this was so enriching for me. I would be one of the people. I would show up just after the maintenance person showed up to open up the whole property, and I would cook a breakfast for the band.
Oh, yes.
And it would be just me in the kitchen. Sometimes a volunteer would show up, and it was just so relaxing to be there beginning of the services before everything started. And I'm cooking sausages and vegan sausages and eggs. And just, I remember that, of all the volunteer service I did, that's like a highlight, just that little simple thing for me. So
what a great way to be of service. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
So how are you doing and your community doing with managing COVID? And right now you're in Denver, Colorado. Is your county or your state like I always measure things. Can people eat inside restaurants?
Yes, they've just reduced the capacity of restaurants, but people can still eat inside of restaurants.
Wow. Okay. And what about your services? What are you experiencing there? For what are you doing?
Well, we have Wednesday services and we have one Sunday service at 10 a.m. And we had been developing systems as we thought the numbers were going down, say in September, October. We started developing systems for bringing people back in November. So systems like registration for seats and bringing the ushers back and helping them learn how to help people find their seats because we want to social distance people.
Sure.
Signage, having stations for temperature taking and hand sanitizing and all that sort of stuff. So we were experimenting by bringing small groups back. We would have the board of trustees come back and let the ushers work with them, and have parents come back and let kids come back and work with all that, so that we were preparing to open the first Sunday of November to a much larger group. We were able to have 100 people at that time, but that includes our whole production team. And so, as you know, we have quite a few ministers, a big music program, big production. So really, it probably meant about 60 to 70 actual guests when they all come back to it. But we were prepared to open, and then the number started going up. So we actually ended up doing the opposite of what we planned. And just this past week decided we are not going to have any guests for sure for the rest of November. And we had a meeting with the governor's office. They are very kind to invite faith leaders in. And the state epidemiologist said that with our COVID numbers the way they are, the trajectory of the current numbers indicate that the absolute high point of the disease here in Colorado will be on Christmas Eve.
Wow. So
while we haven't made any formal decisions, we're back to services with no guests in the room, no ushers, nobody, just the staff. And we've decided that our 6 candlelight services will not have any guests in them, and they will all be broadcast. And we're just preparing today to make some final decisions about the timing of those services and the logistics of those services. And it's going to be a very different experience. For Mile High, we're used to 8,000 people coming through the doors for the candlelight services.
Yeah. Gosh.
So it's going to be very different.
Yeah. My besides my heart goes out to a community like yours, community like ours, that we haven't met in person at all because of the restrictions we've had, period. But even a little business and everything else. I went by a new restaurant that we used to love. It was a restaurant. My first birthday here, I got this massive Bloody Mary that had like 6 appetizers on it. Do you remember that picture?
Yes, I do.
And they had this outrageous, huge thing where they took up 15 or more parking spaces and put a tent out and brought their furniture out. So my heart just goes out to big and large businesses and communities that can't meet in person, and they're trying to figure out new ways without any guidance. There's no department of outside restaurant work that our government, that our tax dollars go to support them. Everybody's got to figure it out, just like you guys have to figure out, how do we do this? And we've probably never had service even outside. How do we manage less inside, everything else? So how are you feeling about when you think about the number of businesses that close from a minister's consciousness standpoint, when you see all the closures and apparent minimalization and limitation going on?
Well, I have a lot of compassion for them, and at the same time, like you're sort of pointing to, I have a lot of gratitude for the innovation that is rising up. And so I think what doesn't work for humans in any realm is the clinging to the past and wanting it to be the same. I don't think in this COVID situation that's going to help anybody individually, any business owner, any church. We're going to have to be creative and think of new ways to do things, to connect, to engage, to be successful in our businesses. And the government is going to have to think of new ways to support businesses and people who are unemployed and those who are underserved. We're in a time that's calling for huge innovation, and I feel that we will make the best of it if we can ride that wave rather than ride the wave of victimhood and poor me and ain't it horrible. Now, that doesn't mean we, like you were pointing to earlier, we don't have compassion. We don't do our best to help our church or the local businesses. I've loved some of the ads I've seen recently, and the conversation about, hey, this year for Thanksgiving, don't cook your own meal, order food from a local restaurant and help keep them in business.
Cool idea.
That sort of thing. Think outside the box, let go of your traditions and your ways you've always done it, and think about how can I help other people, other businesses stay around this, be successful despite these difficult times, because we can all do that for each other in very powerful and meaningful ways.
So, yeah, that's a powerful way to express as religious scientists, because I know you don't have to be a religious scientist to think like that, but in our teaching, we think so much that if it's all God and that infiniteness is expressing through us, there are no limit to ideas. And in a given moment, whether I'm just getting this one cup of coffee or serving thousands, how can I do it differently for the safest and the highest benefit of all?
Right. Yeah. And not let myself, there's something really important to me in this about when we hit barriers in life, whether things are going great or we're in the middle of all this challenge, when we hit barriers, all the motivational speakers in the world will say, do you let that barrier stop you, or do you figure out a way to push past the barrier and move forward in grace and elegance and love and peace and wholeness? And that choice to either get stopped and fall down and just, cry and feel victimized, which you may choose to do for a little while. Everybody does that at some point. But some of us live in that state where every barrier is just another reason to give up, another reason to feel discouraged, another reason to complain, versus barriers being a moment where we can experience and express our disappointment, but then say, okay, how am I going to get past this? How am I going to be different? How am I going to do different so that I can still move forward in the direction I'd really like to go, and maybe utilize this barrier as something that makes me stronger. I got to interview Jean Houston recently.
Oh, wow.
She's amazing. And she said, you know what? It's time for humanity to start saying, how do we want our government to work? How do we want education to work? How do we want healthcare to work? Instead of stop complaining about how it is working and looking backwards at it and feeling stopped by it, it's time for great innovation and great vision if we can allow ourselves to have that. So that's what I'm choosing to do in all of it.
Powerful way to look at it. And I know our son has introduced me to a couple other social media platforms. And so as browsing those, the innovation that people have had.
Yes.
That I think you and I are pretty open thinkers, and I think a lot, and I never thought that's an ingenious way to connect with somebody.
Yes.
Your work, to work at home, to have your little business, such unique and diverse and different ways. And Jean Houston's just what a revolutionary and evolutionary advance being on the planet to thinking almost beyond the world view.
Yes.
But yeah, I agree with you, and I love how you so clearly presented. It's not, in life it's always been, here's a barrier, how can I work through it? Now it's like right in our face, and it's right present, being like, do I go out the front door?
Yeah.
How do I move through that barrier to still feel satisfied, produce income, be creative, be in relationship, and move through that physical barrier that's right in my head, much less my emotional and mental barriers that are going on that we're constantly growing through and evolving with. When I visited you guys in June in our county in California, we were able to do indoor restaurants at a limited basis. Gosh, I think that went on for only 3 weeks max, and that's been it since mid-March or so. And but on my trip, I decided not to go and use any app on my phone to go to some major coffee chain or restaurant chain. I did nothing but mom and pop places or individual places all the way. And sometimes I had to drive off the freeway a ways to get to that. And I didn't do it because I thought that was bad, right? It was a point of, I really want to either support these places or I just want to have a different connection. And almost every place I went was a different connection, from some person behind the counter in this 100-year-old building in some what was that cute town called?
Silverthorne or something.
What?
Like
Silver.
It wasn't Silverthorne, was it? I don't remember. But
No, it was like a town with no steep street lights, no stop sign, maybe 60 houses, and in 100-year-old building, this woman had a coffee shop. And she just like totally lifted my spirits of being a caregiver to my parents and having a great day. And she said the cool phrase, well, we wish you well. Like, she was the only one there, but it was that group consciousness of we wish you well.
Yeah.
I'll always remember that. Just that one little thing.
Yeah.
And what connection I was able to create in this environment of a parent shutdown.
Right. Yeah. And you bring that wherever you go. You always have this wonderful adventuresome spirit, like going off the beaten path is really Reverend Brad's way of exploring life and meeting new people and having new experiences. So I think you're a great inspiration for anybody who feels stuck right now with COVID to just sit with you and have some conversation and say, how do I get unstuck? I think you are great at helping people do that. So
yeah. Thank you for that. I love doing that. And you won't hear me give you any advice. I just have whatever is another option beyond what your wall was. And you're good at that too. How can we say, we hear you. We are clear where your wall is. Great. We're going to guide you and support you and sing beyond that with your words and your ideas. So, so it reminds me of our 5-year anniversary. We went to Paris.
Yes.
And we're walking through looking for a place to eat. And I go, there's an alley. Let's go eat down that alley. And I'm paraphrasing after all these years.
Yes.
Making my story the way I want it.
Yeah.
So we sit at this little front window and have fried cheese and we order way too much food because we didn't know how to freaking order or speak French. But across the way, we get to see some guy attracting customers in the other alley restaurant by throwing plates down because he's a Greek restaurant.
That's right.
Plates on the street. Come to visit us. Come in us higher. Have some tzatziki or something. So.
And then in New York, you'd always eat off of those street vendors whenever we visited New York that one time. And
yes, and because I asked to do that, our son got drastic food poisoning, and Michelle did too. So they're inside for 3 or 4 days. Oh my God! Since our son will never watch us, he's like, whatever, you guys do your church thing.
Yeah.
I still have the vision of when he got sick, and it was both ends at the same time. Sorry.
It was bad.
We're not eating, so I'll stop talking about it.
It was bad.
But it was fun. It was really fun.
Yes.
Speaking of COVID to Christmas, so at the time of thinking about Christmas things, one of the most memorable things that you and I have talked about before is it was our last night in New York. Where if you choose to be in the space of I am one with God. See, I even close my eyes for that. I am one with God, and I choose every moment to always have that infinite expressed through me, even when I'm not thinking about it consciously. It puts within to our subjective mind, that's the truth. And for my awesome former wife and I, on our last day of a whole week in New York, we're leaving. We're not sure if we're on the right street to get a taxi to go back to our condo. And we come out from Rockefeller Center, which was beautiful to see. And across the street I got chills, is this old building. And we hear Carol of the Bells playing. And on a gobo, is that what you call it?
Yeah.
There's snowflakes all over it. It's like 9-story building, Carol of the Bells playing, and snowflakes dancing on us, and we're just riveted. Holding our son's hand between us, and we're just awestruck and riveted. Do you remember the feeling when you saw that?
Yeah, it just stopped us in our tracks. And you and I both have always loved Christmas and Christmas lights and Christmas music, and then to not know where the music was really coming from exactly was really mysterious. And it was just spectacular. I think that was almost more spectacular to us than the Rockefeller tree. We loved the tree, but we just left the tree, and oh my gosh, amazing.
Yeah, that was magical. Just a magical place. Just a magical place.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. So what are you and your family doing different? Because as I'm part of your family, I won't be probably visiting, most likely won't be visiting the family. And I give a huge kudos to her very sweet, loving husband, Ken Chrisman, who's just a wonderful person and has always been inviting to me however I want to have a relationship with his current wife. and has been constantly loving and kind. That was the first comment I made about him. He's loving and kind to our son, and now all of our son,
Yeah.
Jesse. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
So who knows? Something may come up where I have enough coverage with my parents. It's not just coverage; it's just, you know. So what do you guys? How might your holidays look differently?
Well, the one thing that I'm having to face personally right now, which I don't think I've told you, is that Jesse, our son, is saying he doesn't want to come here for Thanksgiving. He lives just a few miles away, but he is being very serious, which I appreciate about this COVID thing. And while he's not out in the public eye that much right now, and I'm not really even right now, he's saying he thinks to keep me safe and to keep him safe, he should just stay home. So I suspect that it will just be a quiet dinner here. We were going to have friends over, but then one of our friends' mother got really ill, so she's now traveling, and so I don't think she should probably come into our house after all her traveling. So it's going to be a very different holiday since I moved here to Denver. So, as you know, back at New Vision, we used to do a Thanksgiving service on Thanksgiving Eve.
Yes.
And then you would very sweetly facilitate Thanksgiving morning. My favorite ritual was coffee, some sort of cinnamon roll, the paper, and Macy's Day Parade until it was time to start cooking our Thanksgiving meal. When I moved here to Denver, Mile High has always done Thanksgiving morning service. So that ritual has been completely curtailed. And so this year, though, we're going to film our Thanksgiving Eve service, or our Thanksgiving service on Wednesday night. It will premiere and show on Thanksgiving morning. So I will be home, and though I am not drinking coffee and not any sugar or flour, I will have some keto cinnamon rolls, and watch the paper or watch the parade and read the paper like I love to do. But then we'll probably just cook a dinner. We ordered a 12-pound turkey. So Ken and I and the dogs are going to have turkey for days and weeks. And it's going to be quiet. And I'm sad about that, especially not having Jesse join us. I'm sad about that. And at the same time, I accept it. It's just the times that we are in. It's just what's so. And I think that's going to be how the rest of the holidays may look, not the big group things that we did. You and I always hosted and even have together with Jesse, our son, and Ken for the last few years, big Christmas Eve dinner in the tradition of your family, which we still love doing. I don't know that that's going to happen the same way this year either. So a lot of traditions falling away, as I know they probably will for other people, but all in the name of safety, all in the name of loving each other and protecting each other and keeping each other safe. And so I'm a yes for that. That's got to be the priority.
Great. So, I told you a week ago when we talked about it and I invited you to this, I may have some questions, but most likely they'll come out of the conversation. So just when you said the word, I'm going to change my behavior from something that I used to do for decades, or probably would prefer to do a different way, and one of the words you used was safety.
Yes.
So what would you share to others who are saying, gosh, I really want my holidays or my holiday or whatever I do to look like this, from that standpoint of expansion?
Yeah. I think this whole year has been an invitation to really dive deep within. We had a wonderful speaker, Matt Kahn, do an interview with us early in the pandemic time, like in the spring, and he said basically humanity is being sent to our room. We're being sent to our room. Life is saying go to your room and don't come out until it's over, And so I thought a lot about this in terms of the holidays, and even with all the pomp and circumstance of the holidays that we have in our church and our centers have and people have in their lives, the real juice of the holiday season, whether it's Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Christmas, New Year's, whatever it is the inner experience that we facilitate ourselves in having. And the truth is, sometimes all that, like you were saying earlier, the parties, the gatherings, the busyness, is a distraction to what is really being called forth in us for the holidays. I mean, if you take Christmas, for example, it's all about reigniting the the Christ within, which is what Jesus was teaching about and preaching about through his whole ministry, and saying to us, look, it's not about me, it's all about you and your willingness and ability to light the flame of the divine within you and discover the presence in you and as you. And so I think that if we could take this as a time to say, okay, I'm going to let go of all my long held and clung to traditions and all the things that I think make Christmas special and important. Even it's been decades of doing that. And instead, I'm going to actually take the invitation that this pandemic is offering me, and I'm really going to focus within this year. And whatever I do to facilitate my holiday, celebrating gratitude, lighting the menorah, decorating, not decorating, cooking, socializing online, connecting with people, engaging with people, watching services for Hanukkah or Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever. I'm going to do so really consciously. And I'm going to up level my quiet time, my silent time, my prayer time. I'm going to up level my reading about these holidays, my reading about gratitude, my reading about the celebration of Hanukkah, my reading about the birth of the Christ and the birth of the Christ in me, so that I can really get it this year. Because what if this holiday could be the dawning of the Christ light, the second coming, if you will, that we've all, and that Christians and others have been, yelling about forever. But what if that second coming has to come in the space of quietude and the birth of stillness within us in a whole new way? That's the invitation and opportunity that I think is before us this holiday season.
Totally powerful. Totally powerful. Amen. And so it is.
Yeah.
Saw me look down because I still take notes to this wonderful teacher and inspired woman. And I had to write something down, not just watch the video later on.
Yeah.
So what a powerful way to look at the whole package. I'm kind of lost because I had a zillion ideas and I'm just so present with the moment of, oh, now I got it. So it really reminded me, because where's my hand? Where's my camera? Prayers of treatments of steps of treatment. Recognizing all that God is, I'm one with that. I recognize the allness of God. I'm one with that. I claim my life. I give thanks for my life. I just let it go and let the law do it.
Yeah.
So Michelle's talking about almost doing this, right? Let's do this instead of just being present with the moment. We talk about going within. We talk about taking a breath. We talk about having this powerful spiritual practice. I interpreted all the amazingness you just said as step one and some as step two of treatment.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I want to recognize the amazingness that is, and I want to be so in it in step two that in the moment with my eyes closed and only my spouse across the Thanksgiving table from me and a stack of masks in the car, that I can still feel that infinite presence of infinite love and peace and order and joy right in this moment. And if we spend that time now, and for whatever time this appearance of can't quite do some other things takes place, when we can do physically more things, imagine where that's going to be. And that's what we do in prayer, right? We claim the presence of God where we are, and that I'm one with that. Now it's not just Brad doing some friggin' prayer. It is God, and then God as Brad, and then God speaking the word as Brad to claim that truth.
Mm-hmm.
Zillion times more powerful than just Brad saying something. So
yeah, I loved how your prayer looked like a turkey too. That's really appropriate for Thanksgiving. But and I also want to say to what you said, that even for those of us who will be completely alone without other human companionship, a lot of us have that kind of sadness in our heart. I'm going to be alone for Christmas. They don't have a spouse. Maybe they don't have anybody living in their home. But I think it's also a great time, especially during this pandemic, to remember we are never alone, because that presence you're talking about is the presence is always right where we are. We can't be alone. Being alone is a complete illusion. We might be without the company of other human beings, but that's not being alone. It's impossible for a human being to be alone. And I know that may sound trite, but to lean into that during this time and really be self facilitating and enlightened in that, in gaining that access, as well as whether it is just looking at the spouse or the people in your home across the table from you during this holiday season and knowing that you've got that companionship, or even I know people are experiencing Zoom fatigue, but gosh, on the holidays, creating opportunities to connect via phone or Zoom or FaceTime or whatever, and really look into each other's eyes. That's a gift too. And so just recognizing that this is just 1 year out of our lives. It's just 1 year. It's just one holiday. And how can I make the best of it? And what you're talking about, which is our spiritual principles coming alive in us. Wow, wouldn't that be a great gift if we could look back at 2020 from 2021 and look at 2020 and go, oh yeah, that was the year I woke up. That was the year that the holidays were the best I've ever experienced them, because I really dove deep. I really allowed myself to experience the Christ light. I really facilitated myself in deeper spirituality, versus, oh yeah, that was the year when I didn't get to be with anybody and it all sucked. You get to choose. You and I get to choose. And we get to facilitate ourselves in whichever direction we would like to go. And we're at that choice point right now.
Huge. I'll finish that sandwich with, again, and we get to choose that this year I woke up. So yeah. Dr. Michelle started with that. He said the awesome contents, and then I'll finish with, and that's the year we woke up. So what if the whole thing was the year we woke up and realized our divine potential? And I loved your line. As human beings, we are never alone. No. It's just, if we believe there's one life, that life is God, then that can't show up into it. We can miss being with people, right, but we can never be alone. No. You know what? For those of you who don't, I haven't shared this with any student for a long time. For those of you who do some meditation or don't do much, I encourage you just to sit for as long as you can, with or without music, with your eyes closed. Mm-hmm. And I bet sometime in that, you're almost going to feel like tendrils come out. In fact, I remember the first time it was for me, sad to say, I was already a licensed practitioner, but I was in the holding the presence and doing prayer during a board of trustees meeting at our church, the church you're a senior minister at. And I think Jesse was there in his little bassinet laying on the floor or something. Thank goodness he was quiet for so long. And it was my longest meditation. It was a long board meeting. And it was maybe he couldn't have been there, but it was like 2.5 hours to 3 hours. And I remember definitively that meditation time was profoundly expanded who I was, and I felt one with everything. Mm-hmm. Because of that time. You're sharing about, whether it's Zooms or different ways to connect and be in family. So not as Reverend Brad, but as Brad, I'm going to pause and sit and meditate on it a little more. But I had the idea, I'm pretty sure I'm going to host a Thanksgiving dinner and a Christmas Day dinner on Facebook.
Oh, that's great.
And I'll send out a link because I can have a lot of people on Zoom, and whoever wants to show up, and I'll lovingly guide sharing, maybe break some of us into groups for anybody who, particularly if they only have Facebook and have no idea who I am. But there's one more opportunity to do what Dr. Michelle and I'm sorry, I told her, at the beginning, Michelle, let's do Dr. and Rev and we'll be formal and then we'll talk in first names. But it's so ingrained in me that when we're public, she's Dr. Michelle. Michelle. Yes. And she's never made fun of me or gotten after me for that. It's just, we're public, it's Dr. Michelle. So as this sweet old lady is, Dr. Michelle is sharing about different ways to connect, what can I do? This morning, I was with my a mentor of mine, a practitioner of and culminating me of, Brad, remember, I'm in, how can I serve in any situation? What's here for me and how can I serve? So that's the behind energy of anything I may think I want to do.
Right.
Think I want to do or feel I want to do. And I want to sit with that because there could be other ways that, for me, staying at home with no other family members, taking care of my parents, could somehow serve. And thank you for inspiring that idea. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like everything. It serves us when we serve it. So we get to ask ourselves, how could I make this time that's going to be so different really be different in a powerful way versus different in a discouraging way? And
Powerful.
that's up to each one of us. And I suspect that everybody listening to this can probably come up with some of their own ideas. It's a very interesting juxtaposition because on the one hand, people often complain about the holidays, complain about the demands placed upon them, time, energy, money, complain about decorations going up too soon, complain about the hoo-ha of it. Yeah. But at the same time, now that life is saying, okay, we're taking a lot of that away, now sometimes people are like, but wait a minute, I have these traditions and I want to do it. And it's just like an opportunity to go, okay, all right, I get to have it be a completely different way this year. And I remember one Christmas that really touched me so profoundly. It was, as a kid, it was the first Christmas after my parents were divorced. And my mother, the agreement my parents had around the holidays meant that first Christmas day, we were going to my father's and my mother was going to be totally alone. And I was really sad for her. And I went to her and said, Mom, maybe I should stay home and be with you and let my siblings go be with our dad. And she said, no, go ahead and go be with your dad. That's what we've agreed upon. And I said, but what are you going to do, Mom? And she said, I'm going to go downtown to the shelter and feed the hungry.
Awesome.
And I remember she did that. And we came home on Christmas evening, that evening of Christmas. She had a glow about her and a light in her eyes I hadn't seen for months. It made such a difference to her. And I'm not advocating necessarily that we all go feed the hungry today for Christmas, because that may not be the safest thing. But what I'm saying is that I watched her make a very unusual choice that fed her soul in a way that made it one of the most special Christmases. And it was special to me. It was an example for me. She was a great example of, look, when circumstances change, I get to decide how I can best facilitate myself into a greater space of being. And that has been with me all of my life and is definitely with me this holiday season. So I may not get to have, a million people in our house Christmas with cooking baraks and gifts on the table and staying up till way late and then, sleeping in or going down and jumping on my son's bed and trying to wake him up like he used to wake us up. And, I may not have any of that stuff that means so much to me, but I will have meaning. I will have inspiration. I will have deepening because I choose it.
Very cool.
I choose it,
yes. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Powerful. So I want to point out what I learned and what I know many people in the audience probably picked up. So she shared a decades-old story where her mom, who was a wonderful woman and one of my closest friends still, and I still call her mom, and I'll, schedule time. I think I told you 2 or 3 weeks ago, I just went for the day.
Yes.
I think I went for one night just to go visit him because I missed seeing him. I just drove over to Phoenix and saw him. But she was talking about where her mom chose in the moment, saying, you know what, my kids aren't with me. We just got divorced in the past year. I'm going to be of service. And how that still, I'm going to use my finger to point, that still is an inspirational message from Michelle.
Yes.
A few minutes before that, she said how beneficial you are. You said it much better than I'm going to paraphrase. Beneficial you are to be of service. So in this time, all of you saw me, got the inspiration to, how can I maybe serve? And you saw me light up. And it hasn't even happened yet.
Right.
You saw me. So from a decades-old story that just got inspired through Dr. Michelle, and just in the moment with me, I'm realizing how it so serves us and all of us to be in some type of service. Absolutely. Since COVID started, I'll have a little goodie bag in my car. It's
Yeah.
got a bottle of hand sanitizer, a couple of gloves, 3 or 4 masks, and sometimes I'll put a few bucks in there. And if I see somebody, I just hand it to them.
Yeah.
And I remember one person, some young guy, I said, "Hey, could you use some help?" He goes, "Yeah, that'd be great." I just hand him that. I give him a few more bucks out of my pocket. And he said, "Oh, thank you, sir. I'm so glad you didn't do that God bless thing, because sometimes I have a little issue with that, because it's just some people it's just say thank you. It's like the infinite's always blessing all of us, and we're always blessed because we're in the infinite. And just a thank you, a sincere from one human being to the other. So
Yeah.
thank you for inspiring us, reminding us, in this time it's looking different. So here's the lesson that I'm getting from still working on our time together. Can I take this time to be in prayer? I almost said be in service, but be in prayer. And from that place, how can I breathe and know and be of greater service to me and the immediate person to me,
Mm-hmm.
and to anybody else who happens to show up, however they do or don't show up physically.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and there's some little things that I've got in mind for myself for the holidays that may help people. I've already begun decorating, and I noticed that in years past, when we have like holiday parties and things here at our home, I've done certain decorating for those parties. And this year, I'm choosing only to put the things out that I really love, that really inspire me.
Oh, sweet. That's powerful.
I felt like this year has been a challenging year. I totally acknowledge it. And some people are decoration adverse. Like I said earlier, don't put them up too early. And I'm sort of like, look, it's been a really interesting year. I'm going to have decorations up longer this year than not. So I started decorating, bringing my favorite things out, going through and just handpicking those things. So that's one thing. Put things up you love. I've learned about sending gifts to people on Amazon, and they don't even need to know that it's from me. And so you can set up, just even little gifts. If you go and say, I'm looking for gifts for a female, $10 or under, and there's just wonderful, sweet little things that you can send off anonymously, and people will just get them that you love, or that you want to acknowledge. So sending out gifts. You can also send gifts to shelters, or we do a lot of gifting to a shelter that feeds families here in Lakewood, underserved families. So we can send school supplies, we can send food. So we can do that through Amazon and other services. Touchless gifting like that. We can, just call or text people. Say to yourself during the holiday season, every week I'm going to send out 5 just, hey, I love you, how you doing texts. Or I'm thinking of you, hope all is well. We wish you well, like you said earlier. Our family wishes you well this holiday season. That means so much. I know when I'm on the receiving end of those texts, I feel so touched that someone just took a moment to say they were thinking of me. So, something like that. Or making a phone call, just calling someone and saying, I see you. Doing random acts of kindness. I've been so touched by people who've been going into grocery stores and standing in line and then going up to the cashier and paying for somebody's groceries. Or, paying. You and I used to love driving through that big box coffee place we won't name and paying for a car or two behind us. Random acts of kindness. These things are the things that can make the holiday really unusual and different, touching and awakening for us, because they're heart producing, they're love producing, they're warm, they're sweet, they are engaging, and they don't have anything to do with parties and drinking and eating and socializing. They have all to do with just finding sweet ways to be of service to people,
Sweet inspiration. Yeah, I love that idea of also saying gifts anonymously. And if you do it, I don't think I do it with a kid, but with an adult, you can just say from Santa.
Yes,
and it'd be fun with some item. They say, whoever sent this must know me a little bit.
Yeah. Well, somebody sent me a box of coffee recently that is not the brand I usually drink, and I'm not drinking coffee right now, which is fine. A long story, but
And you
I was
haven't forwarded that to me, but go ahead.
yeah, I thought somebody probably wants me to try a new cup of coffee. And then I recently got a little beautiful makeup bag that's all sparkly. There was no, because it came from Amazon, no return address, no internal card. I have no clue who sent it. And it's just like, wow, okay, very sweet. And then it just dawned on me, well, I could do that to people too. So
Yeah.
even you
Yeah.
can just send it through Amazon. No one will know unless you put a gift card in it that it came from you.
Well, you just save me $3.99 because now I don't even have to pay $3.99 to have it wrapped and include a gift card that says from anonymous.
Exactly.
I'll just send it.
Yes. Yes. They won't even know who it came from.
Remember that Starbucks there at was it Cactus? It was Greenway and Cactus? For about a year, Michelle and I lived in separate houses, just a block from each other, because it just ended up that way. And both had pools, which is very wonderful for us. And that Starbucks down the street, right there on the corner of, it always got flooded there in the intersection, but it was right up north on 40th and Cactus and 40th and Greenway. Anyway, one Christmas I went there, and they asked me, "Would you like to pay the person behind you?" And I said, "Sure." And I was like number 42 or something. Well, it was during the holidays, so
they had done. They had every card doing. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought, hold on, how could I stop that kind of love and gifting going on when it's that much in a row? So very cool.
Yeah.
So we're after the 50-minute mark, but I so appreciate your time. You sharing here just touches me and continues to show me how much I love and appreciate your presence.
Thank you.
However it shows up in my life.
Thank you so much. I love and appreciate you too. And by the way, congratulations on becoming Reverend Brad. I'm very happy and proud of you.
Oh, yes,
a long time ago, so I know you're serving your community very beautifully.
Thank you. Yep, love it there. Yeah. Awesome, sweet, dear community, sweet people, very sweet people.
Good.
So any kind of words of wisdom, you shared a lot of amazingness that I hope others will listen to, like me, and glean more with a notepad to say, how can I take what I've attracted to me as additional teaching and inspiration? Anything else you want to top that off with?
Well, I would just say it's somewhat of a reiteration, but the bottom line is that our teaching, Science of Mind, teaches us that we are co-creator of our life. We are the co-creator of our experience. Now, we have a bunch of conditions that have come our way that we maybe didn't attract to us necessarily. I can't say we all attracted this pandemic, but I can say that it doesn't matter what happens to us. It's what we do with what happens to us that makes all the difference, with or without a pandemic. And so this is a time to use our teachings to create the holidays we would like to have, to set intentions around, I choose for this holiday season to be a loving, peace-filled, light-filled, Christ-filled time, and then allow that intention to guide us forward as we make decisions about how to do it differently than we've ever done it before. Not out of victimhood, not out of complaining, but out of what opportunity can I make of it? That's our teaching. That's what we have to do every day of our life to live this out. And it's just that it's no different during the holidays. It's just a different experience. So
there we go.
Your own.
Yeah. It's just a different experience. Life is always happening.
Yep.
Life is always happening. And now this looks like this, and we've never seen that before, but it's the same as if someone tried to keep me out of $20 across the counter or something else. So it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Powerful. Hey, so you and I love Christmas, and you said you start decorating early. So the scene behind you, is that your lobby that you forced your church to create, or what is that?
No, this is Camp Christmas. It was an installation last year, and luckily you got to join us for a family outing to Camp Christmas. And they took a big warehouse and they decorated all these cool scenes. And I just loved this Christmas tree. It had lightsabers on it, if you remember, and
I see them there. Yes.
all sorts of lights. And so I decided to put that as our background to have a conversation about the holidays and light. So
Awesome. Great.
that's great.
You know, I'm not sure what you just said, but I still think it's awesome that your staff let you put that in the lobby there.
We do have a beautiful lobby, usually decorated with great Christmas holidays.
Oh
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Powerful. Thanks, Michelle. Okay, if you want you to hang on, I'm just going to kind of do a little wrap up. Our awesome production manager, Jeff, owner of Swing Point Media, has been producing the show for us. And he's graciously not reminding me to keep my elbow off the stage so my camera doesn't shake. But I protected myself. You see the guests there. Thank you, person who shared this beautiful conversation. Thank you for the many chestnuts taken away to savor the holiday season.
That's great. Yeah.
Great inspiration.
Chestnuts at Palm Desert.
Thank you all for joining us. Again, if you're hearing this on a recording or just finishing up with us today, we have an amazing program every morning at 10 a.m., whether it's our 10 a.m. service on Sunday, wrapping up with a 10 a.m. meditation on Saturday, and amazing talks along the way. Our staff ministers, which I'm part of that group, we do a program called Sensational 5 or Fabulous 5. We're changing our name. We've had a restructure. Every Wednesday at 10, but 10 a.m. if you need some inspiration live, there's something going on to serve you. And all of it's available through our website, in particular our YouTube channels. So thank you for joining us. I want to remind you that somewhere on your screen right now, or particularly right when you log off, you'll probably see a donate button, might be a blue box. We appreciate you giving a service. That two things. One, I always never ask out of need. If you want to continue to support this and you want to give that way, write the big check or put the big credit card down. And also, in principle, if you're so appreciative of what you've received today, and I'm so thankful that you, in your life, created with us to share with you, because your consciousness created whatever the heck we talked about today. Something within you said, I want to hear just what Dr. Michelle and Reverend Brad need to share with me today, just from my personal, definitively inspired expression. And you want to give from there, that level of appreciation, then I encourage you to give whatever that is from that level of space. So, great. Michelle, you sweet woman, thank you very much. Blessings to you and your family.
Thank you.
Who knows if I may drive up and see you, and I may have a 2-hour window before I have to come back. But I'll let you know. So,
yeah, it'd be great to have you.
Thank you, Jeff from Swing Point Media. Blessings all today.
Yes.
Take care.
Happy everything.
Happy everything. Bye-bye.